don't know about you, but in the past, this is how I organized all of my recipes. I have cookbooks, notebooks, pages I printed from the internet, and all kinds of magazines and cookbooks. This is hard to keep track of, and it's even harder to take with you when you go someplace. But not anymore. This is how I organize my recipes now. That's right. Now I organize all of those recipes on my phone. It's on a convenient app, it's really inexpensive, and it's totally a game changer when it comes to organizing your recipes. Hi, I'm Barbara Sue. I'm from Kowalski Mountain. Thanks for joining us today. Let's check out the Recipe Keeper app. Years ago, after I finally got a fancy phone after having a flip phone for probably longer than I needed to, I discovered the Recipe Keeper app, and I love this app. It's probably one of the most used apps in all of my apps collection. Now, the Recipe Keeper app comes out on all platforms. You can get it on Android, you can get it on Apple, you can get it on Windows, but it doesn't cross over. So when I first was introduced to Recipe Keeper, I downloaded it on my phone. That's how I wanted to use it. And I very excitedly went to my PC and tried to upload it there and to sync my recipes between. The one negative I have about the Recipe Keeper app is that in order to sync across platforms, meaning from PC to Apple, you would have to buy a different app for each platform. Now, that's not a really big deal to me. I didn't do that. I just use it on my phone, but it does cross over to my iPad as well. And if I had an Apple computer, it would have gone there as well. But I don't. I have a PC. I just use it on my phone and the iPad. Now, either works great, and honestly, I use my phone the most, but the iPad is a really nice way to use it because it does make the recipes a little bit larger and a little bit easier to see. Now, for today's video, I'm going to be using the iPad a lot just because it's a lot easier to show you, and it's a little bit bigger so that you can see all the great features that Recipe Keeper has. Now, Recipe Keeper doesn't have an affiliate program, so I have no financial incentive to share this app with you. I love it, and I think that you should store your recipes digitally too. It's so much easier, and it has a lot of benefits. So let's check them out. So this is the home page of the Recipe Keeper app. And across the top you have courses, categories, favorites, and your recently looked at recipes. And courses and categories are ways that you can organize your recipes so it's really easy to find one when you want. If you're going to be making dinner, I just check out the main dish section. And because I've categorized all of my recipes, I can find them in the different categories. I've got lamb and rabbit and venison. Recipe Keeper comes with 8 courses preset in the app, and you can add as many as you like. Now, in my course section, I have a few unique courses that you might notice. I've got one here called New Recipes Want to Try. And any new recipe that I find goes into this folder first. I only put tried and true recipes in the course folders so that I know which recipes we like and which recipes we don't. I have another one here called Yuck, Don't Make That Again. And believe it or not, there's a pretty good reason for that. I have had recipes that we tried and didn't like, and somehow they ended up back in the app and we tried them again. So rather than delete them, we go ahead and put them in the folder so we won't forget that we aren't trying that recipe again.
Thank you.
Now, I also have a course called Homestead, and this is where I put things that are specific to the homestead. I've got recipes for fly spray and recipes for organic insect solutions that we can use in the garden, plus things like the suet chicken blocks so I can make my own chicken blocks for the chickens while we're away. Now the next way that you can organize your recipes is by categories. That's things like beef and chicken and vegetarian recipes, or things like egg. All of those specific categories that your recipes might fit into. Now sometimes they fit into more than one category. I have a really great recipe. It's for beef and broccoli, is how it was designed for, but it tastes great with chicken, shrimp, and venison. So I can tag it with all 4 of those categories, and if I'm searching for a recipe in any of those categories, it's going to pop up as a good meal option that I might want to put on my menu plan. Now if you're not exactly sure what you want to have for dinner, there is a category called all, and then you can just look through all of them and see them in one long list. Now inputting your recipes into Recipe Keeper is easy, and there's 4 different ways you can do it. Now you can do it in a manual entry mode. I just push my plus sign. It's going to give me the different ways that I can enter a recipe. We've got add new recipe, which would be a manual entry if I want to type it in. And honestly, I don't use that very much just because it can be hard to type on your phone. So if I use this on the PC, or if I had a Mac, that option would be one that I might use more often. Now the one that I use, there's actually 2 that I use the very most, and those 2 are import a recipe from a website and also to scan a recipe from a photo. And I'm going to show you how simple it is to do both. Now I'm going to import a recipe, one of my soap recipes, into my Recipe Keeper app. Now I'm going to do some prep before I do that. So I'm going to go down to settings, and I'm going to go to edit my courses. So I'm going to add a new course, soap recipes. Say plus. I'm going to go to categories. I'm going to add a new category of soap. And now I'm ready to import that soap making recipe. I'm going to pull up my favorite website, which is kowalskimountain.com, and I'm going to import my latest soap making recipe. So I'm going to grab that URL right here at the top by copying it. And then I'm going to come into Recipe Keeper, and I'm going to say, hit that plus sign and push import recipe from website. I'm going to paste. I'm going to push go, and I'm going to let that work its magic. Once I get this black message, I know that my recipe was imported, and I'm going to go to the overview section and choose my course. And my new course that I just created is right here, soap. So I'll check that. I'll go to my categories, and there's my new category of soap. They also have a section called collections. And if you have a favorite website that you download a lot of recipes from, you can create a collection. So I have my Kowalski Mountain as a collection, and I'm going to go ahead and designate this as a Kowalski Mountain recipe. And it shows me my source, that it came from kowalskimountain.com, and that it makes 10 bars. Now you can see that the ingredients were imported directly, as was all of the instructions and any notes that there might have been. And it even brings in the photo from the website. Now I'm going to push save. And there's my new recipe imported from the Kowalski Mountain website. Now the other way that I frequently input recipes into the Recipe Keeper app is with the photo feature. Now this is one of my favorite cookbooks that I have held on to. It's the Hershey's Homemade, and you know, I still pull it out and use it. But if I want to put those recipes into my Recipe Keeper app, I can do it by just taking a picture. So let's see how easy it is. Alright, so I'm going to take a picture with the iPad, and you want to zoom on that as well as you can. There's a little bit of a glare. I don't want that. All right, let's import this recipe. So in the Recipe Keeper app, I'm going to push the plus sign. I'm going to push Scan Recipe from Photo. Now the first thing I need to do is I need to add a photo. So I'm going to select Photo. Pull it in here. And here's my recipe. Now this little box moves around. So I'm just going to stretch that right on over all of my ingredients. And then I'm going to push where it says Scan Selection to Ingredients. Now it's scanning it. And you want to be sure to preview it, especially if you use handwritten recipes. You want to make sure it comes through accurately. So I'll do a quick check. Everything looks good to me, so I'm going to push Accept. And I'm going to move on to the next part of the recipe. So I'm going to scan that down to the instructions. I'm going to say Scan Selection to Directions. And you want to do the same, making sure that everything came through exactly the way it is, and then you push Accept. Now, if there's a little note section right here, you can scan that in as well. Push Accept. Now, things like the title, I usually just type that in. It's a little bit easier than scanning it in. So this is a cookie recipe, so that's going to go under the course of desserts. And it's going to go into the category of cookie. Now if I had a collection for the Hershey's Best Recipes, I would put it there, but I could type that in if I'd like. But the ingredients, directions, and notes are all there. Now this photo that I took is also there. And if I have a better one that actually shows the cookies, I can choose that and I can change the order of the cookie. But since all I have is the recipe picture, I'm going to save it just like that. Whoops, I got to enter a name. Here we go. Peanut butter blossoms. And I'm going to save. And there it is, an imported recipe from a photograph. Now, once you have your recipes into the Recipe Keeper app, there's all kinds of ways you can use them. When you pull up a recipe and you select one, if you have your settings set correctly, this will stay open as long as you have a recipe open. You probably know how frustrating it is that when you have something open on your phone and then too much time goes by and the lock screen pops up. There are settings in your settings section so that that won't happen, and your recipe will stay open the entire time that you're using it. Now they have another cool feature that as you put ingredients into your recipe, you can just click them off. And as I click off those ingredients, I can just mark them off and they show in a gray color, showing me that I've already put those ingredients in. Now that feature might be really helpful if you're multitasking and you've got several things going on. So you can just kind of mark things as you go and you'll remember exactly where you are when you return. Now I think it's a really good feature for young cooks too that are learning to cook and manage their recipes. They can click them off as they go and they know that they've entered every ingredient. Now I've been using the Recipe Keeper app for years and I didn't even know it had this feature, and I wish I knew when I planned our wedding reception because it really would have come in handy when I was organizing a big party. And that is the adjust feature. Now you can adjust the recipe up and down. So if I have a recipe that's made for maybe 10 servings and it's just for Philip and I can adjust it down to just 2 and I can cook less food and it automatically calculates all the ingredients for me. Now reducing a recipe in half really isn't that difficult and I can probably do that in my head. But if I want to multiply a recipe for, say, a party of 25, it gets a lot more difficult. So let's see how easy it is with the app. This is my favorite Parmesan chicken recipe, and we love this at home, and it's super simple, and it's actually a pretty impressive meal to serve to guests as well. So if I want to adjust that, I'm going to push that little, I'm going to push that plus sign right there, and I'm going to change that to 25. Now before I do that, I want you to notice this says 6 boneless, skinless chicken breasts with 2 tablespoons of margarine and a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. Look what happens when I multiply this up to 25. I can push OK. Now it tells me that I need 150 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, 50 tablespoons of margarine, 12.5 cups of grated Parmesan cheese, and 6.25 cups of breadcrumbs. And that math was all done in just a couple of seconds to make my dinner planning easy. Now when you're done, you just reset your recipe. So I just click that times 25, I push reset, and my recipe is back to normal. Now one of the features in Recipe Keeper that I really haven't used at all is the meal planning feature. And in doing some research to write this post and do this video for you, it's actually pretty cool, and frankly I should be using it more. So the way it works is you can plan for, a week at a time or more. I'm just going to pull up that planner. And so to add a meal for today, I'm just going to say add a meal. Now, if I have the recipe in Recipe Keeper, I can link them together. So let's say that we are going to be having something with chicken. So let's say that we're going to have chicken and rice casserole. I'm going to select my chicken and rice casserole, and I'm going to push save. Now I have my app set up that any recipe that is on the planner as today's menu, that it pins it right at the top. So all I have to do is click it, and there's my recipe for today's menu. I don't have to search through the app. It's not hard to search, but if you've already done all the work to plan a menu, this makes it even easier when it comes time to execute mealtime. So really cool feature that I should be using on our workations. Now another feature that it has that I do actually like is the shopping list feature. And especially if you've taken time to create a meal plan, this is going to make creating your shopping list really easy. So let's check it out. All right, so I've got my Parmesan chicken recipe here that I want to add to the grocery list. I'm just going to click this little check marks down here at the bottom. And that pulled up all of the ingredients that are in this recipe. Now, we raise our own homegrown chicken, so I don't need to buy any chicken. And I have plenty of margarine in the refrigerator, so I don't need any of that. Now the paprika, salt, and pepper, I've got that too. So we'll just eliminate those. The only 2 ingredients that I still need to buy are the Parmesan chicken and the breadcrumbs. So I'll just tell it to select, and those items have been added to my grocery list. Now let's say that I want to make that chicken and rice. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to pull up that ingredients list and do the same. I've got butter, flour, thyme, chicken broth. We are out of milk, so I need that. I don't need any chicken, salt, pepper. Whoops, we do need some rice and some peas and breadcrumbs and that Parmesan cheese. So I'm going to push add selected items, and all of those things are now on my grocery list. Now when I go back to my shopping list, all of those ingredients that I just entered are added to my grocery list. Now as I'm going through the store, I can just check them off and remove them as we go. Now you can add other things to the grocery list as well. Maybe you need to pick up some personal care products or some cleaning products, and those aren't in any of your recipes. You just type them in and they become a part of your shopping list. Now the shopping list can also be organized. Now by default, it's in alphabetical order, but you can change the order. So if you have a favorite grocery store, you can change the order to fit the layout of your grocery store to make your grocery shopping even more efficient. Now the settings in Recipe Keeper have some ways that you can personalize your app. Now if I go to settings, I can choose the appearance and I can change from different colors. So you can change it as frequently as you want. I actually have one color on the iPad and a different color on my phone, just for fun. Now also in settings, that's where you can edit your courses, categories, and collections. And you can change the order of your shopping list so that it's in a different order. This is where you can do the sections of your meal planner. You can give different colors to the times and color designations for your meal planner for lunch, dinner, and breakfast. And you can also change the start of the week. For me, the week always starts on Sunday, and I don't like calendars that start with Monday as the first day of the week. Now, Recipe Keeper does interface with Alexa. Now, we don't have anything like Alexa at our house, but you can certainly sync it to that if you do, and then you can communicate with your Recipe Keeper app through Alexa. Now, if I have sold you on the merits of using the Recipe Keeper app, you can also import your recipes. If you have another app that you've been using that you're not too happy with, you can import them in. You won't have to redo all that data entry. And all of that is done in the settings section. Now, another thing that you can do is, let's say that you have a side dish that goes really well with a particular main dish. So I'm going to pull up my pork, and I'm going to pull up the lemon rosemary pork tenderloin. Now I like macaroni and cheese with my pork tenderloin. So I'm going to push down here these little dots down here, and I'm going to tell it to link to another recipe. I'm going to type that in, and I'm going to push link. And then when I look at my app, that recipe that's a side dish is right at the bottom. And so it just saves you some steps where you don't have to, search. Now again, searching's not hard, but Recipe Keeper, they've thought of everything to make this as user-friendly as possible. Now I do want to show it to you on my phone as well, because like I said, I use Recipe Keeper more on my phone than I do with the iPad. It's just a lot easier for you to see, and it's actually easier to use in the kitchen as well because the instructions and ingredients fit the screen better. But let's look at the phone and just see what it looks like. Now on the phone we have all the same things that we had on the iPad. So I can choose a recipe, choose an egg recipe. Here's the shepherd's breakfast. You can see the entire recipe here. I can click things off as I go. There's my instructions, my nutrition, and the photo. If I want to adjust this recipe, let's take this one down. Let's take this down to 2 servings. Push OK, and it adjusted that recipe for me automatically. And everything that I did on the iPad works on the phone as well. I've got my meal plan here at the click of a button. I have my shopping list right here, ready to go. Now let's say that someone requests one of your recipes and you want to share it with them. You can do that in the app. You just go down to the share button and you tell it you want to share. Now you can send it by text, you can send it through Facebook, or any other way, through email. You can just send that. So I can send this. I'm just going to send it to Philip for fun. And now that recipe is shared with him. He gets a link in his text message where he can open and use that recipe. Now another cool feature, if you're like me and you're getting a little older and it's harder to see, every recipe has a way to change the font so it's just a little bit larger and easier to see. Now I've been using the Recipe Keeper app to organize my recipes for as long as I've had a fancy phone, and I love it. Now my only challenge is getting all of those recipes from that 3-ring binder that I collected for 20 years into the app. And it's just a slow process. Friends, I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and I hope that you'll check out the Recipe Keeper app. I really enjoy it, and I highly recommend it for you to organize your recipes. Friends, thank you so much for watching. If you have not hit that subscribe button yet, hit that button. We're almost to our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and we can't do it without you. We'll see you later.